This meeting is being recorded.
Alrighty. Let me just pull up my notes real quick. There we go. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Brittany Branyan, and I serve as Director of Carey Center Community and Collegiate Division to include the nonprofit affiliate program, currently serving over 170 nonprofits in East Alabama and beyond. You all are in for a treat today, but before we begin, I would like to quickly share about the Carey Center Nonprofit Affiliate Program for some of our new friends on the call. The Carey Center Nonprofit Affiliate Program offers educational programming, professional development, and networking opportunities to nonprofit professionals. You may have heard about our Carey Center Nonprofit Summit, our volunteer internship career fair, also known as the VIC, or our Mix and Mingles. Carey Center nonprofit affiliates are the first to learn of upcoming programming, and membership is free. So be sure to join at aub.ie/NPAAPP. All right, I just let someone in and I lost my spot. Here we go. Be sure to stay on for a couple of minutes following today's speaker to learn about our latest programming. I know for a fact that you will be very excited to learn what's coming up. But before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank this year's sponsors who have pledged to support our efforts in providing meaningful programming for the nonprofit sector. Thank you to our Oak level sponsor, the Community Foundation of East Alabama. Camellia level sponsors, Auburn University Outreach and the Drummond Thorne Stoops Fund for Excellence. Community service grants provided by State Senators Randy Price and Tom Watley and State House Representative Joe Lovern. And Azalea level sponsors, the United Way of Lee County and Himmelwright Hughley and Bowles LLC. For more information on how you can sponsor our programming, please email me, Brittany, at brittnybranyan@auburn.edu. As our program begins, please feel free to speak up with any questions, or if you prefer, go ahead and type them in the chat and I will ask them for you. And while you are familiarizing yourself with the chat function, please go ahead and type in your name, the nonprofit you represent, your role in that nonprofit, and your email address. Now, let's get to the reason you are all here. I was asked not to make the introduction too long, but as you will soon see, there are quite a few things I could not leave out. Dr. Linda Wise McNay is founder, owner, and principal consultant with Our Fundraising Search in Atlanta, Georgia. She has completed more than 15 years of consulting and has served more than 175 clients. Linda's nonprofit background includes work with both higher and secondary education, the arts, human services, and faith-based organizations. It has included work in capital campaigns, annual fund, planned giving, membership and development, and executive search. Prior to launching Our Fundraising Search on her own, Linda served as Chief Development Officer for the High Museum of Art, leading its efforts to raise $95 million to bring art from the Louvre, and China to Atlanta. She also served as Director of Advancement at Pace Academy in Atlanta, Vice President of the Georgia Foundation for Independent Colleges, Executive Director of the Emory Challenge Fund at Emory University, Director of Development at the Georgia Institute of Technology, and within alumni and development roles at her alma mater, Transylvania University. And when she's not running the world, Linda enjoys traveling with the family and friends, reading, writing, and playing board games. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Linda McNay.
Wow. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you for that introduction and for organizing this for today. And I want to give a special shout out to my friend Sid James, who's the executive director there at the Carey Center, because we work together at Emory. not quite 100 years ago. I was, I'm glad to get us back together again. So thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here with you all.
Well, we're excited to have you, Linda, and I have to brag. Every time I've been around Linda McNay, I always learn something. Very wise woman. Her name is very appropriate. Her maiden name is Wise.
Well, thanks.
Thank you, Linda. Really do appreciate it that you're with us today.
Thanks. Well, today we're here to talk about fundraising. It's so important to nonprofits, and there are 1.2 million nonprofits in the United States. And I looked it up just so I would know. There are 24,818 nonprofits in Alabama and 356 in the Auburn area. So that's the competition out there, and every one of them needs to raise money. And that's why when we do it, we need to do it the very best we can. Now, in the last day or two, you might have gotten a survey. I was hoping to figure out who was going to be in the room, and it was pretty much expected because in the room we have some CEOs and we have some development officers, and not all nonprofits have development officers, so that makes it even more critical for the rest of us to know how to raise money. There's other staff members, there's board members, and some other volunteers in our session today. So we are all, hopefully there'll be something for everyone. And there are no right and wrong answers. We're just giving each other some help and direction. And I hope you will share in the chat and get acquainted with each other. That's usually the most important part about one of these sessions. And I just wish we could be in person. So maybe next time. I also asked how much experience, and some people in the room have less than 1 year experience. Some have more than 5 years, but most all of us are in the same group, 1 to 5 years. So I will try to direct my comments that way. Now, most of us, when we talk about fundraising, I can say, oh, here's how we used to do it before COVID. And then here's what happened during COVID. And now that we're on the far side of it, I sure hope, then some of us are going back to the way we do things. Some of us are having some sort of hybrid, and some of the things we're doing are brand new because of COVID. So we're all in this stage of transformation, which makes the raising money even more critical. So whenever you start raising money, it always starts with a strategic plan. So we're not going to talk about how you craft one today, but I'm hoping you all have one. Most organizations have them, but it might be sitting on a shelf somewhere. A lot of organizations got their strategic plan out at the beginning of COVID and threw it out and started a whole new one. So wherever you are, just make sure you can get your hands on it and that it has numbers in it. A lot of times when I meet with a nonprofit, they'll go, oh, here's our plan, but it doesn't help us get to the results of the plan. It just has some great ideas in it. So strategic plans should be 3 to 5 years. You should review them every year with your board and see how you're doing towards your goals. Then you probably know what your operational budget is, and it's different for everybody in this room, I'm sure. So whatever the budget is, we have to figure out how we're going to hit that. And then in order to transform your organization, you need a different budget. In fact, when I worked at the high, we had 3 sets of budgets. Here was the basic. This is what we have to do to keep the doors open. Here's what we'd like to do if we had a little more money. But then here was our super budget that here's what we do if we had more money than we knew what to do with. In fact, my boss and I used to sit around thinking of, well, if somebody gave us $1 million today, what would we do? So I would encourage you to dream big, because if somebody brings you a big gift, if you hear from Mackenzie, Bezos' ex-wife, and they bring you a lot of money, what would you do with it? Because you want to figure it out before you get it. And then we'll see if we can't work toward helping you find it. You have to have a fundraising plan. Does everybody in this room have a fundraising plan? Yes, no? You would be surprised how many times I go into an organization and they don't have it. Or if they have it, it's another one of those things on the shelf. Nobody's looked at it. And we are going to talk about the elements of a plan today. We don't really know how we're going to get to our strategic goals unless we have the money, and we've got to figure out how we're going to get the money. Sometimes organizations will hand me a calendar. That is not a fundraising plan. It's helpful, and you probably want to have a calendar as part of your plan, but it's not the only thing. So in your plan, there's all types of fundraising. You probably have some social media. You might write some letters. You might call some folks. You might have a big event. All of those things are important and should be included in the plan throughout the year. But here's what I want to caution you. Some people think just because they have some events that they have maximized their fundraising, and I would encourage you to do even more than just parties. So here's the things I wanted to talk about today. People give money because they're asked, not because you think they know you have a great organization. We have to go and actually ask them. We'll talk about how to do that. There's 5 different types of gifts. Board members, and I hope we have board members in the room, they have the fundraising responsibility, not just you, whichever role you're in. This is a team effort. There are 3 keys to fundraising success, and if you have these 3 things, anybody can raise money. There's a right way to ask for the gift, and then we have to do stewardship and make sure we thank people if you want to get a second gift and continue to get gifts into the future. Now, is there anything not on this list that anybody wants me to touch on before I start? And you can ask me throughout too, or at the end. All right. I have a debate with a friend of mine who's also a consultant because she thinks everything is an ask. I would agree that an ask is a request for a gift, but she counts letters and proposals. Those are all important part of fundraising, but to me, an ask is in person, where you're looking at somebody one-on-one. You can do it online, even though it's even better in person, but that's what I believe an ask is, and that's what we have to do a better job of if we want to be successful. We also want to ask for a specific amount. You need to give people a target. If you say to someone, oh, you don't want to give to my organization, do you? Well, that's not a great way to ask, but you also haven't given them a target. So it makes a difference. If you want somebody to give you $500 and you don't tell them that, you might get 25. So yes, you got a gift, but it's hard to go back to get the rest of it if you didn't give them a target. People also want to know how you're going to spend their money. And then after they give it to you, you have to tell them how you spend it. It's a partnership. So why do you think people give? There's lots of different reasons. Some people give to their church. Most people give. If they're going to make a gift, they give to their church or synagogue. People might give to the Cancer Society if someone they know had cancer. They might give to their children's school or their college. There's lots of different reasons why people give out of guilt. They want to fix something. They want to stop something bad from happening. But the number one reason why people give is because somebody asked them. And I think of it as a game. Brittany told you that I like playing board games. Well, there's a strategy involved with it, but we're trying to get the right person to ask for the gift, the person that prospect can't say no to. You want to ask them for the right amount, which means we have to do a little bit of homework to see what their capability is. If you ask somebody for $1,000, can they really make gifts like that? Have they done that in the past? And we also want to ask them at the right time. You don't want to ask them if they just lost their business or someone in their family passed away or if there's something bad going on. When I worked at my kids' school, I always checked with the teacher before I went to see the parent because I wanted to know if the child had gotten in trouble or gotten a bad grade the day before. I was picking my time to go at just the right time. Now, this is a chart that I showed in every presentation I do because I think it's important. Giving USA is a national organization that calculates giving for all categories from all sources, and it'll come out again in June. Now there is a lag, so this information is about a year old, but it's evergreen. So there was almost $472 billion given away in 22, and that was even though we had COVID, and it was 5% above 2019. So people were still giving. We can't use COVID as an excuse. We have to keep asking. But giving is big business. That's why we're all here today. Giving is important. And this comes from the tax records. So it is true and correct. The big surprise here is where the money comes from. So if you have maybe some board members who are advising you and saying and what they say to us here in Atlanta is, oh, let's get Coca-Cola, let's get Delta to make some gifts. Well, that's a great idea. We should probably ask them, especially if their employees are able to take advantage of the resources of our organization or if they participate as volunteers. But all the companies together only account for 5% of total giving in the US. So what that says to me, and what I tell my clients, is you should spend about 5% of your time trying to get a corporate gift or a corporate sponsorship. But that's it. There are better ways to spend your time, and you need to educate your boards about that. There are foundations that may support your organization, and their giving accounts for about 15% of the total that's given away every year. In Atlanta, we have some very generous foundations who give locally, and all of us want to ask them. Many times they give to capital campaigns. This chart does not differentiate between types of gifts. This was just the total giving, so it could include capital campaign gifts as well. The fastest growing piece of this pie on this chart is the green piece of the pie. That's bequests, that's planned giving, and that is also individuals. But 80% of the money that's given away every year comes from individuals. That's how we should spend our time, asking people one-on-one to support our organizations. I don't know if that surprises any of you. Now here's that same chart, but this is where the money goes. So you should be able to find your organization on this chart. I told you before that if people give one gift, they usually give to their religion, but I have watched as that piece of the pie has been diminished. It used to be half, now it's closer to a third of the total. Education is second, and that includes schools as well as higher education. So depending on what box you check on your tax forms for your organization, that will determine what category that your gift is. Giving is changing over time. My children are grown, they are philanthropic, but they don't give to the same things I give to. They might give to international affairs or the environment or animals. There's lots more choices, and I already told you how many nonprofits there are. That's why we have to be very clear about our mission and goals so that we can share it. Here's the 5 different types of gifts. Most of us know about these, whether we're actively seeking. Most nonprofits need all of these. We start with annual giving, and annual giving is exactly what it sounds like. It comes every year. You might have membership programs, you might have an annual fund. Annual funds can be run one day a year, 2 weeks, a month, or you can run them all year long. But basically, we want the same people to contribute to us every year because we do good work every year. Then there's a few people that are capable of giving larger gifts, and we call those major gifts. They don't come every year. They come occasionally when you're doing something special, and they can be annual or capital. Sometimes people don't realize that capital gifts are just for bricks and mortar. Sometimes programs, you can do a comprehensive capital campaign that includes the annual fund when you report your totals, but most organizations will have a capital initiative every 5 years. You're going to have to renovate a building if you're not building and growing your programs. But you don't have to worry about that every year. An endowment gift is like a savings account. Your organization, I hope all of you have an endowment. If If you do, you need to share with your donors that you have one and you would accept contributions. Those are usually directed from people who really care about your organization and they have for a long time. And they might make a planned gift, which is the 5th category. Planned gifts can come from a will, or there's several other vehicles, trusts, that kind of thing. You don't have to be an expert in planned giving to accept a planned gift. You just need to know when to call your nonprofit's attorney when it's time to accept. 80% of planned gifts are bequests, and they're very easy just to put a statement in the will that says, yes, I'd like to include this organization in my will for an amount or a percentage. So you should be asking for all these types of gifts. You should have planned giving as an option on your website and on every one of your pledge cards. I made a mistake early in my career when I was at Georgia Tech. I was working with a gentleman that had no children. His wife had passed away. He had a nephew he didn't really like very much, and he loved Georgia Tech. And he made an annual gift and he made a major gift. And I was getting ready to ask him for a planned gift, but I didn't get around to it soon enough and he passed away. And I know he would have loved making a nice gift to Georgia Tech, and we missed the opportunity. So I made up my mind then not to let that happen again. And you shouldn't either. Now, what should the board be doing? Well, there's lots of things they do, but as it relates to fundraising, they're in charge of the budget. It is not just you. It's not just the CEO, not just the development officer. The board members need to behave ethically and expect the staff to. And there should be no even sense of a conflict of interest. If you want to do business with your board member or their company, then they should rotate off the board or take a leave of absence until that's concluded, so that there is no consideration. You don't want other people not to make gifts because of something that's going on internally. Board members have to be confidential, especially as it relates to donors. You have to have them help you. You have to be able to share donor information so they can say thank you and help you figure out the best number to ask people for. All board members need to serve on one or more committees. And when I recruit a new board member, I always ask them to be on the development committee first. So that's a little trick you might want to try, because once they've learned all about development, then they can serve on any committee they want. You can make it a requirement. They should attend meetings, not just of your board, but of committees. And then they got to make sure you spend the money the way you said you were going to. Now, here's what I expect of a board member when they come on. They need to make a gift. You need to have 100% giving from your board. And when you total up what all the board members have given, it should be about a quarter of your annual fund or a quarter of your capital campaign. Not all board members can make the same gift, so I don't usually recommend using minimums. You can make recommendations. We like all our board members to give at least this much if you want them to give $1,000. But I would always say $1,000 or more, because some people have more capability than others, and they should be asking each other. It is not the CEO's job or the development officer to recruit or solicit board members. They ask each other. All board members should be asked to make a planned gift. And then once one of them has done that, then they can ask their peers. All of them should participate in every capital campaign. In fact, you're not going to be able to get gifts from corporations and foundations unless you can say you have 100% giving from your board. They should all participate in fundraising activities. Now, some board members will say they're not comfortable raising money, or they don't like it, or some other kind of excuse. Well, that's fine. There's other things they can do besides asking, and we'll review some of those, but they need to get comfortable, and you should have a training just like what we're doing here today with your board, probably once a year. Now, here's the process of fundraising. I believe everybody is a suspect. So if you look at who else is in this chat, all these people should know about your organization and what you do. And then some of them, once you've researched them, we're going to link in and do Facebook and and Google them to see what else they give to. We're going to figure out how they make nice gifts to other organizations. I read the donor wall everywhere I go, and you should be too. Take notes. Oh, there's my board member. They gave more to this organization than they did us. I read the obituaries and see where people's final gifts are going. So we need to be figuring that out for everyone we meet, and then they become prospects. And then once we have a list of prospects, we can share that with our staff and volunteers, and they can help us cultivate, invite them to a program, ask them to participate as a member. And once they make a gift, then we're going to say thank you multiple ways, and then we're going to do it again. So it is not a vicious cycle, it is the donor cycle. And we need help to do that. Board members can help you identify and evaluate prospects. That's an easy thing to do. They can introduce you to people they know and invite you to their home or their businesses and host events. They can cultivate and they can ask. They can host stewardship events. That's always nice. That's an easy thing to do to get them started. They should come to your programs. They should attend your events. They can do thank yous. One of my favorite projects is to get a group of board members together and bring them to the same location and call donors and say thank you. We call that a thankathon. And it's so powerful for someone to receive a phone call from a board member. They took their time to say thank you. And then board members go, oh, this is easy. That's not so hard. And then it's not too far for them to stretch to actually do solicitations too. They should be your advocate out in the community, and then make sure you're spending the money just right and bragging on you when you've done a good job. All right, this is the most important slide of the day. So if you don't take anything away from it, this is it. This is the key to fundraising success. You have to have a compelling case for support. We've talked about the competition. What is it that you do at your organization that's better than what's going on down the street or different? And it has to be compelling. Some people call this the elevator speech. I like it in 25 words or less. If you don't have it, sit right there, write a little paragraph, tell us what it is that you do. And it needs to be succinct. It should be the same message that all your board members and all your staff say. You can say it in a little different way if you have a personal story, but we are all in this together. So if we were in person, I would have you practice and talk to each other about what you do. And you should do that with your board members and development committee so you can hear what they're saying. It's not rocket science, but it does take a little bit of practice. It should be the same message in your letters and on the website. Look at your own messaging. Are you all saying the same thing? Has things changed over time and you forgot to change it on the website? Be consistent. You have to have a group of people, leaders. Starts with the CEO and the board. Hopefully there's a development officer or someone in the team that assists in that process, and then other volunteers. And then you have to have a written plan or strategy. And we talked about the pieces that might go in that. I like to get my plans together before the fiscal year starts and then share that with the board and the development committee. And then they vote to accept it. And then they own it. Then it is not Linda McNay or the development officer's strategy. It is their strategy. So if you have a compelling case, strong leaders, and a written fundraising plan, there's no way that can stop you from raising money. The strategy is a little more complicated now, and your organization is going to be different. So does anybody want to tell us how much a major gift is for your organization? Do you have a category? Maybe it's a larger annual fund gift. You can figure out what a gift should be for your organization if you run a list of all the gifts last year by amount. and you can see where the breaks are.
So we have someone that has spoken up in the chat.
Okay,
Krista
great.
says 350 and up. And
Okay.
Chris says 3,000 to 5,000.
Okay, good.
Robert says 10,000 or more.
Okay.
It keeps going up. Anyone want to beat 10,000? Sid said 25,000 and up.
Excellent. Well, there is no right or wrong answer. Every organization might have a different number, but you do need to pick a number, and that's where I want you to focus your time. If you want to raise more money for your organization, the fastest way to do that is through major gifts, and have a program or a period of time through the year where you work on it with your major volunteers. So let's just say we're going to make it $1,000, and you have a lot of people who give less than that. Let's look at the people who've given 500 or more 3 years in a row. Maybe they're prospects for moving up to 1,000. Or maybe you have a lot of people who've been given 1,000 and it's time to move them up to 2,500. We're always wanting to move them up and to get more of them at that top level. So 10,000 is a great number. That was our top membership level when I was at the high. We increased it to 15 and then to 25. And I was so proud of ourselves for what we were doing when I found out the Dallas Museum they had $100,000 annual giving level. And then I went back to the drawing board to see, well, what is it we are not doing? So there's always going to be people that are doing things slightly differently, but you got to figure out what is a major gift for your organization, and then let's figure out who the prospects are for that. It might be people who've never given before. Maybe you've never asked anybody for $1,000 before. Your board members should help you with that. They need to become donors at that level and then help you figure out who your prospects are. And we'll talk about who your prospects might be, but we don't want to all go ask the same person. So there needs to be some sort of a system. So let's say you have your top 100 prospects and you have 10 volunteers are going to help you. Everybody's going to take 5 or 10 names and then report back to you on how they're doing. And their assignment is to ask for $1,000 or more. And you'd be surprised how quickly that adds up. You might need to give them a little training and teach them what to say. People might make an annual gift and give you $250 or $100 without really thinking about it. When they want to make a major gift, it might take a little more time, and you might not get it the first time you ask. They might have to think about it, talk to their spouse, talk to their business partner. So we're going to give them some time, but it's our job to do the follow-up and go back. And whoever asked the individual needs to go back for the follow-up and also do the thank you when it comes in. So there's only 3 possible options when you ask for a gift. Somebody's going to say yes, in which case they might write you a check, or you can send them a pledge form the next day with a thank you. They're going to say maybe, and you got to figure out, well, what does it take to get to yes? Do you need more information? Is it the wrong number? Do you really want to just give 800? You're trying to get to yes, and you got to have some communication about that. And if they say no, does it really mean no, I don't like your organization, I'm not going to give $1,000, or does it mean it's not a good time? Come back in June. June will be better, or I've already made my contribution for this year, ask me next year. I don't really hear no. So we're trying to get to yes. What does that mean to the person talking to you?
Linda, we have a quick question if it's okay.
Sure.
Chris is asking, is that major gift definition based on history, what has been given, or a reach goal, what might be a dream donation, or a need-based, as in we need X money to make this happen?
Well, it can be all of those. A dream goal might be a mega gift. It might be larger than a major gift. I consider major to be sort of in the middle somewhere. You might have some people who give significant gifts, either out of their estate or, and those don't come around very often. Major gifts should be, a number of people should be able to make that kind of a gift. And they could be former donors moving up. People that have dropped out for a while, you're bringing them back. basically you got to make sure they know it was important. I'll tell you one story. On one of my big birthdays, I made some extra gifts to a number of new organizations. And let's say I sent 5 gifts in December to 5 organizations. We probably got thank you notes from all of them, but one of them, the executive director called and got my husband, and he said thank you, because it was the first gift we had ever given to that organization. So the next year wasn't my birthday anymore, but guess which organization we kept giving to? It was the ones that called. My husband's still talking about how that executive director called him and said thank you. So there are things we can do to increase the odds of somebody making a gift and moving up, but it's going to take conversation. I like it when board members make gifts of 1,000 and then they ask others to join them. And you can ask that question once you've been successful. If I ask Sid for a gift and she gives me $1,000, I'm going to say, well, Sid, who else should I be talking to? Who else should we be asking for our organization? And she might say, oh, I can ask my friend, or I can help you, or I'll introduce you. But we have to ask. And then we just repeat it. We can't just do it once. It's that cycle we were talking about. And it's fun. You don't want to just do it once. We have to do it regularly. When I first worked at the High, there were 80 board members, and I went and visited each one individually. It took me a long time. And when I went, I took them a list. There were 27 different ways to give to the museum, and most of them had given 2 or 3 gifts. And they also told me they were tired of being solicited. Well, it makes sense. We were asking them 27 times during the year. So I gave them a little list and I said, here's what you gave to last year. Thank you very much. What would you like to give to this year? And I promise I'm not going to come back and bother you. And they were so excited. They didn't know they could give to art. They didn't know they can give these other ways. Giving increased 350%. And then the next year, I didn't have to go see all 80 of them. Then I could write them a letter and say, here's what you gave to last year. Here's what we're doing this year. And they would tell me. And I would only go see the new board members or the new prospects that we hadn't reached in person. It works, I promise. So who are your prospects? I meet organizations all the time. They go, we don't have any major gift prospects. Well, I challenge them and say, well, yes, you do. And let's think about who they could be. If you're a school, you have parents. If you're a college or university, you have alumni. You have people who walked across your campus for some reason. All these are probably non-education, but there's people in your community who care about what you're doing. They might come to athletics. They might use your library. There's lots of organizations that you can partner with. It's a matter of making a list. Then we're going to ask our board members, who do you know in these categories? Who have we forgotten? I read a lot of materials in order to prospect. I read the daily newspaper. I read the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I read weekly the Chronicle of Higher Ed and the Chronicle of Philanthropy. All of them have donors and prospects. And I'm sure your community does too. What's the new company that just moved to town? Let's get somebody from there on the board. Let's ask them to join us quick before someone else grabs them up. I write notes when I see people's children and grandchildren in the news. I'll send condolences or thanks or encouragement. We need to be in the prospecting business every day. And it's not just one person. All of us should have that mindset. And people need to hear from us more than just when we're asking. We are communicating with them and then we'll ask them. So if everybody's a prospect, good prospects have these characteristics. They have a connection. They've already heard of you. You're not the first time they've ever heard of you. And you probably have a pretty good relationship with them. They have money, and you can look that up. It's all online. They probably have given before. Your best prospects have given before. Sometimes they want recognition. So think about what you can offer to people who are going to become a major donor. Are you going to invite them all to dinner at the end of the year? Or they get to have coffee with the CEO? Do they get a special tour? Do they get to meet with some of the people that you're serving? Some people want recognition and they want to be in the group. Do you have an annual report? Are they listed on the website with or without numbers? The biggest gift I ever got came because the donor wanted recognition. She wanted her name on the wall. So we put her name on the wall. Big gift. So once we figured out who our prospects are, who's going to go see them, I like to take as many people as are going to be on the prospect side. So if you're seeing a couple or two business partners, you probably want to take 2 people. I got a 7-figure gift from somebody once, and the foundation person told me we were not going to get a gift. This man had grandchildren, but they didn't go to our school. But I took 4 people with me. I took the head of school, the chair of the board, the chair of the fundraising committee, and the chair of the campaign. And we showed up and he felt special and important. We each had a part in the solicitation and he couldn't say no to us. Part of the strategy. So where are you going to meet? I like to go to the prospect. It can be their home, their office. You can do it in the coffee shop, but I prefer not a public place if I'm going to ask somebody, because it might be inappropriate to ask somebody for a major gift in public. Figure out who should be in the room and which of the couple you need to see, who makes the decisions. And then you go when it's convenient, night, day, whatever they want to do, that's when I'm going. Now, before you go, you want to make sure you're prepared and whoever's going to be in the room is prepared and that you're on the same page. You want to look at their past giving. I always lead with thank you. Thanks so much for your gift last year of $750. Here's what we did with it. I should take them a copy of what I'm going to ask them. So it can be in a letter form. It can be a brochure. It's that compelling case that we talked about. Here is what we do. Here's some pictures. I'm going to talk to them about it, and then I'm going to leave that behind. So it could be a packet of information prepared for you and whatever volunteers. You might not want to leave that behind if it has giving history in it, and there should never be anything controversial in that packet. And then you practice. That group of volunteers I told you about at my school, I would make them come in the day before, the 5 of us, and we would practice. I had written scripts and each one of them had something to say. And then I was in the room in case one of them forgot to say what they were supposed to, I could say it. And what happened is we got better over time. Every time we made a call and had a little success, we would do better the next time. So then we could just rehearse in the car on the way to the call. And then we didn't have to practice anymore. We knew each other's parts. It's a really beautiful thing to see. So in the appointment, you got to pay attention to your body language. Are you wiggling all around, or do you have good eye contact? Are you listening to what the person has to say? I like to ask questions. I look around the office and I'll say, oh, these are your grandchildren. I didn't know you were in Rotary. Or tell me about this. Tell me about your best experience at our college. What's your favorite memory of working with our organization? People will tell you if you ask and listen and remember it. So I track people's pets' names, their children's names. What is it people care about? So you can ask them about it next time. And then I always put a figure out there. Would you consider a gift of $500? Would you consider a gift of $1,000 for this project? And here's why. So here's the 3 magic words. Everybody repeat this. Would you consider? Brittany, would you consider a gift of $1,000 for my project? Look, she's nodding. Yep, she's considering it. That is not a yes or no question. She's thinking about it. And once you say that, you have to stop. You don't say anything else. There is silence, and the next person who talks loses. You want the person. If it's uncomfortable for them. They're going to have to say something next. So make sure you know your number and remember the 3 magic words. Would you consider? Everybody will consider it. and they're going to tell you if that's their number or not. No one is ever offended if you ask for too much. They might even think it's fun. They're probably going to give more than what they were planning because you gave them a target. All right, so to wrap up our tips, everybody is a prospect. And I would challenge you. I told Brittany I was going to give you all homework. So you can choose whether or not you do it, but I think you should write down 5 prospects for major gifts for your organization. Who are people that when we hang up today, that you can set an appointment with them. You can call them, you can email them, you can go see them. Don't assume that somebody shouldn't give. My boss and I went to see a lady one time, and we were not going to ask her for money because we thought she'd given enough. But we had to tell her about the project. Otherwise, we couldn't be asking her friends if she didn't know about it. So while we're telling her about our big idea, she gave us the biggest gift we'd ever gotten. Every prospect, every major gift prospect deserves their own solicitation plan, and each one might be different. Your best prospects are prior donors. Don't forget that. Anybody can solicit a major gift. $350, $10,000, whatever your number is. Anybody can do this with a little practice, and anybody can close it. When I worked at the school, my headmaster was brilliant at making the case and talking about the vision for the school. He could not close a gift. So I went around with him. And what happened over time is he got better at asking and getting the gift, and I got better at the vision, and then we could split up and see twice as many people. Takes a little bit of practice. Every major donor needs to have 3 relationships with the nonprofit. Sometimes the CEO doesn't want anybody else soliciting the major donors. They're going to do it. Well, what if they leave? Sometimes the CEO doesn't want the development officer to talk to anybody on the board. They need to. What if my boss hadn't let me go see all the board members at the home? We wouldn't have gotten all those gifts. Somebody's got to do it, and there shouldn't just be one relationship. We have to share that. It's for the long-term health of a nonprofit. You got to set appointments regularly for these major gifts for them to come in. So I've done it multiple ways. You can set one every morning. Go have coffee with somebody on your way to the office. Then you get it done. If you wait to the end of the day, not going to happen. You can set aside a day of the week. Okay, on Fridays, I'm going to do nothing but make visits. And you can make 3 to 5 good visits in a day in person. But you have to set the appointments or it will never happen. So take that top list of prospects. So that you've got 5, set appointments, decide when you're going to do it. Don't wait. Then you need to create a process on how you're going to get some of these new suspects. You can read the paper like I do. You can do other things. You can have your board members bring you new names. Listen, smallest detail. You got to do the follow-up. Even if you go and ask somebody for a gift and they say they're going to send it, you got to follow up. Did it come in? Did it not? You got to remind them gently. And be consistent. If somebody gives $1,000 and this is what you get for giving $1,000, you got to do that for everybody. You can't treat people differently. They got to give it $10,000 to get this extra special benefit. So after you ask, we have to say thank you. They're going to get their tax letter, but that's not as exciting as getting a handwritten note from someone who might have been on the call. Board members can write thank you notes. They can make these phone calls. Remember, my husband still giving to that organization and talking about them publicly. If you promised that you're going to list the donor names in the annual report, do it. Put their names on the wall. Communicate with them regularly about other things because you can't ask them too many times. You're going to ask them, see what happens, and then ask them again next year or whenever they ask you to follow up. All right, I'm looking at our time, and here's our recap. And this is your quiz. People give because they're asked, right? That's an important takeaway for today. What are the 5 types of gifts? Do you remember? annual, major, that's the one you're going to focus on after today, capital, endowment, planned. You need all of them. Who's got responsibility for raising money? Board members. What are the 3 keys to fundraising success? If you have these 3 things, you can raise money for anything. Compelling case for support, strong leadership, and you have to have a plan in writing that everybody's agreed to. What's the right way to ask for a gift? Would you consider a gift of $1,000? And then say thank you. We got to do stewardship. If you want another gift. All right, congratulations. Now, in less than an hour, you have heard everything I know about raising money. And if this was helpful to you, we have a book that we wrote during COVID. That's how we were using our time. It's called Fundraising for All, and it is on Amazon. It might be helpful to you. Some of our clients have bought it for all their board members and made them read it, ask them to read it. It should be helpful. So here's my contact information. I'm happy to take questions now. You can also reach out to me individually and tell me what we can help you with.
Hey, Linda, I just want to pipe in here and say thank you. Thank you
Sure.
very much. That was
This is great.
fantastic. This is great. I've been in this philanthropy world now. I mean, what you and I worked together, golly, 1988 and 89? And, or 89, 90, somewhere a long time ago. And I've been in and out of this world. I still learn something new from you every time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have Melinda and then Mark. Melinda, if you'd like to go.
I just want to tell you, this has been a fantastic hour, just jam-packed with incredible information. I was in marketing and public relations for 25 years, but I have a child with special needs. And so I was recruited for this job in Auburn, the Exceptional Foundation. It's a day program for adults with special needs, just because I had such a passion and conviction and had raised a ton of money to benefit my son. So I'm really not a disciplined, organized fundraiser. I'm passionate. I have no fear of asking people, and I'm real big on letter writing. So some of these things come naturally, but some of them don't. And you've really touched on some really key things for me today. And I want to thank you for your commitment to the world of nonprofits and to helping those who are new to the job as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And they're lucky to have you helping them raise money. Good for you.
Can you write that down and send it to me?
You write me and I'll write you. Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. We have Mark and then Laura.
Hey, Linda, good to see you.
Hi.
I appreciate it.
What are you doing on this session?
I'm learning, like Sid said, even though I've been in this a long time, it's always great to listen in and learn. Just a question for you, talking about the board's responsibility for raising money.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts that you could share on sort of board size, or maybe development committees of the board? It can sometimes get clunky if you've got 45 board members trying to actually conduct business.
Well, I do have opinions, and there probably isn't a right answer. I can tell you that 80 was too many at the high. Too many. Can't do anything with 80. I think 7 to 10 isn't enough. And the reason is there's not enough people to serve on all the committees, because you don't just need fundraising, you need finance and marketing and programs and all kinds of other things. So I'd like 25 to 30 is a great number. And there's always the rule of thirds. If you have 30 board members, a third of them will do exactly what you want. A third of them will try and not be successful through no fault of their own. And a third of them will not do it. So if you don't have at least 30, you don't have enough people to help you accomplish your goals.
Thank you.
All right, we have Laura up next.
Hey, I want to thank you. I love how well organized this presentation was. So I appreciate that. I have a question about when do you stop? How long do you get ignored before you stop sending people things? Like my husband gave $25 to the American Cancer Society 5 years ago, and we get 5 mailings a year, and we've never given anything else. To me, that's a waste of our finances. So what is your rule of thumb?
To ask people's opinion occasionally, maybe every 5 years. Most of the time when I start new, either with a client or when I was doing development, and even though it sounded like I worked in a lot of places, I was on the 5-year plan. So one of the very first things I would do when I got there is clean up the mailing list. And you can do that by writing everybody a little postcard and saying, according to our records, you're on our list. You let them check a box or something and send it back, or you can do everything online now, but you could do a little mini poll. Yes, please keep me on the mailing list. No, take me off. You got to be careful of that because you don't want any donors to take yourself off. So you can focus on the people you haven't heard from in a while. If addresses are incorrect, of course, we have to clean that up. The post office used to be more helpful with that, but they only do that every 6 months. I've never deleted a donor. Even if they pass away, you should find their family and stay in touch with them if possible, especially if it was a major donor. So I have trouble hearing that no, but if somebody says, take me off the mailing list, I'm going to explore that and say, is there something going on? Is there something we can help you with? I've tried to get my father-in-law, who passed away 2 years ago, off his mailing lists. I've told people, I've told multiple organizations he's deceased, he's no longer at that address, and he still gets mail. So there are some organizations that are going to keep sending it, but you're right, it is a waste. And that colors whether or not I want to support an organization that does that. So I try to honor the donor's wishes. If you have any doubts, call them up. You don't have to do that once and you might get them back.
That is great advice. Thank you so much for asking that question, Laura. If anyone else has a question, go ahead and ask it. I have an observation while everyone is thinking of their question. I just happened to notice that it clicked in my brain that quite a bit of social and emotional intelligence goes into being a development officer, and I never realized it, particularly when it comes to researching and assessing prospects and during the ask itself. Do you have anything to say about that?
Are you asking the group?
You.
You're asking me?
How do you feel?
I don't know. I think maybe you're giving us more credit than we deserve. I am a true believer that anybody can do this. It is not rocket science. Sure, if you have a little organization skill, that helps, especially when you're involving other people with you. But it's, a relationship building. We're talking to people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like, being able to pick up on social cues is a plus. Being able to kind of put yourself in someone's position is a plus. But like you said, I'm starting to see, and it can go together, that anyone can do it. It just requires a conversation. Awesome. Anyone else want to ask a question? Anyone? All right. Well,
I have one thing I'd like to ask Linda.
okay.
You referenced earlier, and I appreciate this very much, a protocol for soliciting prospects. Meaning, who's going to be assigned A, B, C, D prospect. At Auburn, we have a very, very institutionalized process, meaning prospects are assigned.
Mm-hmm.
In a nonprofit, the whole world is open, open to that. What are some of the things that you would recommend to nonprofit, either development officers or executive directors, on how to qualify who should be assigned to that prospect?
Well, I guess it depends on the program. I'm thinking back to the high, and we sort of had a rule of thumb that made it easy for folks, but that worked in a larger program. So for example, we had 60,000 people on our mailing list. So all of them we couldn't see personally. So we could rank them by amount given or how much we thought they could give. And there are programs that'll tell you how much people are capable of giving, which has to be referenced with how do they really care about your organization. So if it was up to a $25,000 prospect, my staff took care of it. And we would know, oh, that's somebody else's prospect. I took the ones that were 25 to $100,000, and we couldn't get my boss in the room unless it was a $100,000 prospect. But it was very clear that we knew internally how to accommodate all our top donors. Now, as you're qualifying other people to come in, they would usually start at one category and then move up through whatever system. So that's probably moves management, where we figure out where people are. But I've also gotten some significant gifts from people who hadn't given before. I can think of 2 people who gave $25 ever that came to be 7-figure donors. So anything's possible if you do that homework and create a relationship and give it enough time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, please join me in thanking fundraising expert and all around awesome world changer, Dr. Linda McNay. If you would like to review or share what you have learned on today's call, please keep an eye out for a follow-up email with slides and the link to the recording. But before you sign off, as promised, I am delighted to share upcoming programming. So go ahead, get your planners out because you will want to jot this down. On Wednesday, April 20th at noon, CDT via Zoom, Dr. McNay will be back, this time with Carey Center Youth Programs, talking about philanthropy fun with the family. And let me actually go ahead and share my screen. I will be including all of the programs I talk about today. Yes, all of the programs that I talk about today will be found in the email that I'm going to follow up with. So can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So if you want to go ahead, jot this down, that QR code right there will take you to registration or to save the date for that program. And this is going to be an expert class in screen sharing. All right. And then the very next Wednesday, April 27th, Mallory Goodman, Graduate Research Assistant for Hunger Solutions Institute, will share about ending child hunger in Alabama and Etcha County food guides, along with resources your nonprofit can pass on to consumers. This program is at 10 a.m. Central as well, and it is also via Zoom. Again, you can scan this QR code. You can find the OBBY link along the side of the QR code if you prefer that, to go ahead and register for that program. And then finally, y'all have no idea how excited I am to share this program with you. I'm thrilled to announce the Carey Center's first ever mindfulness retreat for nonprofit professionals on Wednesday, May 18th at Shoof Life Farm in Waverly, Alabama. This is a day dedicated to nonprofit professionals and an opportunity to invest in yourself. The day includes experts in the field, to include Olympian and mindfulness expert Rita Clanton, business and career consultant Eloise Stewart, Graduate Research Assistant for Hunger Solutions Institute and PhD candidate in nutrition, Sarah Rains Gonzalez, sleep expert and Auburn University Sleep Lab manager, Bridget Wingo, and co-founder of Nourish Blooms, Dr. Katie Wolter. The day begins at 8:30, it ends at 4:30, and we will have everything from intention setting, mindfulness practices. We will learn about mindful nutrition, sleep hygiene, and at the end of the day, we will have mindful arranging with Dr. Katie Bolter from Nourish Blooms. The day will also include a breakfast, snacks, and lunch that are all organic and locally produced. And we truly hope that you will be able to join us that day. Due to space restrictions, attendance is capped at 25, so be sure to register soon. And again, I will include information about this program in the follow-up email. And that is all for today.